हेलो दोस्तों। तो भाई एक वीडियो देखते हैं, इसमें ना इन्होंने कैमरा टेस्ट दिखा रखा है S24 अल्ट्रा 16 प्रो मैक्स और पिक्सल 9। तो देखते हैं तीनों में किसका कैमरा बढ़िया है। मुझे तो भाई 16 प्रो मैक्स ही प्यार है, इसी का अच्छा होना चाहिए।
We test some cameras. Wait, let me put it in fast mode, repeat.
क्या बढ़िया लग रहा है? अगर इन तीनों में देखा जाए कौन सी फोटो बढ़िया है, ये वाली, ये वाली, ये वाली। मुझे तो पर्सनली ज्यादा अच्छी लग रही है, 16 प्रो मैक्स की अच्छी
My sunglasses are in the back of the car now. Just a little video stabilization test. We've got the new iPhone 24 Ultra and the Pixel, the big three, some would say, and we're actually on our way to Bristol now. Let's do a little camera comparison. So in front of me
S24 अल्ट्रा कम ना यार किसी से, S24 अल्ट्रा ही बढ़िया है।
here, I've got my timeline that's an hour and 45 minutes long. I promise this video won't be that long, but I'm just going to go through all the photos and videos, or a bunch of them that I've taken, to see how they compare. And of course, this is just my opinion. And to help make the photos and videos a little bit more consistent between the three, I've put them in this little makeshift trident I've built here, which actually does a really good job. It's actually mounted on an Insta360 stick, and it means I can quickly take a photo on each. Although you do get a few looks in public walking around with one of these. And if you go to a house party and say, can everyone just stop what they're doing?
ओहो, क्या बात है। कौन सी बढ़िया है? यही बढ़िया है यार, इसमें क्लियरिटी बहुत ज्यादा अच्छी है ना नाइट के हिसाब से।
Pose for 3 different photos in night mode. Well, they may laugh at you a little bit. Anyway, we'll come back to low light and nighttime stuff a bit later on. A couple of housekeeping points to start with. First,
तो 16 प्रो मैक्स की अच्छी क्वालिटी है यार कैमरे
the
की।
16 Pro and Pro Max share the exact same camera system now. There is no more 3x zoom option on the smaller one. iOS 18 also brings some updates, including a pause video recording button for the iPhone, finally, as well as a cleanup tool in the Photos app, again now catching up with Android, although this does require Apple Intelligence, so you may have to wait a little bit longer, and the result
भाई ये निकाल, ये क्लियर करने वाला ऑप्शन तो आदमियों में ही काम आएगा। हम तो आदमियों को गायब करेंगे, जो फालतू के है ना जितने भी, सारा फैमिली फोटो में सारे गायब फालतू के आदमी।
currently are, well, there's room for improvement. Other big upgrades for the new iPhone 16s include the revamped photography mode, which is actually very
यो बेस्ट चीज है यार, ये जो चीज इन्होंने दी है ना, इसमें मजा होगा। इसमें ये है कि एक सेकंड में सेटिंग कर लो।
good now when I find myself using it. Another feature exclusive to the new iPhone 16s is audio mix. We've got 4K 120. Here is a delicious slow motion pizza. Although, of course, don't forget the Samsung can also shoot in 4K 120 via the Pro video mode, although it's not actually as good, but we'll come back to that a bit later on. The 16
भाई 8K 120p कमाल है।
Pros also have a new 48 megapixel ultra wide, up from 12 megapixels, and the main sensor is also faster, so you've got a quicker shot to shot, especially when taking Pro RAW or Pro Max photos. You can see here it's taking almost twice as many photos in the same period as the iPhone 15
बहुत फास्ट है यार 16 प्रो मैक्स तो।
Pro Max. And they also said that they've added a new anti-glare coating to all the lenses on both 16s and 16 Pros. However, putting it against the 15 Pro Max here, well, firstly, the quality doesn't seem that much different at all, just generally, but also, I'm
ना 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 ना, इसमें कोई डिफरेंस फील नहीं हो रहा यार। 15 प्रो मैक्स और 16 प्रो मैक्स ये तो सेम ही लग रहा है।
still very much seeing that little green ghost follow me around.
बल्कि मुझे 15 प्रो मैक्स की स्टेबलाइजेशन बढ़िया
So
लगी।
anyway, here are the full specs of the new iPhone 16 Pros, which I'm
48 12 मेगापिक्सल
focusing on this video, compared to the
सेल्फी कैमरा इतना कम क्यों है यार?
Pixel 9 Pro XL, both of which have 3 lenses. But then, of course, we've got the S24 Ultra with its 200 megapixel main
ओ भाई 200 मेगापिक्सल, बाप रे, ये तो सबका।
camera and 4 lenses. You've got the 3X and the 5X. But let's start this video with a bit of a blind test. Which
भाई सैमसंग इस चीज में तो है, जूम में तो ना बिट सकता आईफोन।
do you think took which photo? And also, do you immediately have a preference? Is your eye drawn to one? And
मतलब ये है सबसे बढ़िया फोटो कौन सी लग रही है जिसमें मजा आ जाए देखने में। भाई ये प्रो मैक्स वाली तो ज्यादा ही वो लग रही है, क्या बोलते हैं ये वाली फोटो ज्यादा।
which one, say, would you post to Instagram straight away? I'm immediately drawn to the left. It's brighter, it's punchier, it's not necessarily the most natural looking, especially compared to the other two. Anyway, let me put you out of your misery.
प्रो नेचुरल है।
Here are the three. You've got the S24 on the left, iPhone in the middle, Pixel on the right. Did you guess correctly? So over the past week or so, I've taken over, I think, 1,000
ये वाली फोटो अगर देखें, इनमें से कौन सी बढ़िया है?
photos on each of these phones, which firstly was an absolute nightmare to compile into a timeline. These videos always take ages to make. So if you do enjoy it and find it useful, then like and subscribe would be
इसमें आहा, फोटो यार ये बढ़िया लग रही है, प्रो मैक्स की अच्छी लगी मुझे तो।
fantastic. But don't forget, there is a massive subjective factor to this as well. You may prefer the look of one over the other, and that's absolutely fine. So zooming in all the way to 25 times, I say all the way, that is as far as the iPhone will go. The S24 can go up to 100 times.
यार जूम में तो फिर S24 क्या कौन टिकेगा?
Although it becomes a bit of a watercolor painting then, but certainly, even though they all have 5x zooms, the Samsung is way out in front in terms of zoom quality. Let's talk about portraits. This was shot
हाय 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 हाय, क्या बात है। यो यार पिक्सल तो घनी तगड़ी फोटो ले आए।
with the 5x portrait on the Samsung.
हाँ 5x में भाई यो बहुत तगड़ी ले रहा है, देखियो। यो इसमें भी हीरो लग रहा है, इसमें भी हीरो लग रहा है। भाई सैमसंग इस चीज में पता ना क्या कर रहा है, मजे वाली। पिक्सल तो भाई ऐसी तैसी मार रहा है।
on the iPhone, although with a Pixel, you can only zoom in to a 3x for a portrait mode shot, which actually is a bit frustrating. A big win for the iPhone is the fact that you can turn a portrait not into a portrait, and vice versa. Introduced with last year's 15s, when you take a photo, it captures the depth information as well. So in the app, you can literally turn portrait on
ओ भाई यो भी एक नंबर की चीज है।
or off, adjust the strength of the bokeh by changing the f-stop. Neither the Samsung or the Pixel have this option. You can reduce the blur all the way down to 0, but it is still a quote-unquote portrait shot, so it's not as clean. And also the ability to add blur is artificial. It's not using real depth
भाई ये है पैसा खर्च करेंगे मजा तो है।
data. However, I do quite like that both the Pixel and the Samsung let you have this kind of portrait light that you can move around the scene, and it changes the brightness of your subject. So I'm sat on a bench here, completely candid photos, I'm sure you can imagine, and there is a significant difference in the colors between them. The Samsung, consistently, what we've seen so far, is a lot more vibrant. The iPhone looks kind of dark and muted, and I have to say I've never been that impressed by the iPhone's telephoto camera, and I think the Pixel offers a kind of
ये बंदा यही है क्या? इसमें भी स्मार्ट लग रहा है, इसमें भी इतना स्मार्ट नहीं लग रहा है, इसमें तो ऐसे लग रहा
nice
है।
halfway house between them, and then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got a 0.5 or 0.6 times ultra
कैमरे एंगल का फर्क होगा, इस कैमरे एंगल में तो सारी फोटो बेकार लग रही है।
wide, and I'm leaning towards preferring the Pixel here. The iPhone looks a little bit over sharpened. The Galaxy is quite punchy, but is just a bit oversaturated, a bit too bright. I like the ultra wide on the Pixel here. Now with these guys playing cards on the grass, look at the sky.
ओहो इसकी इमेज बढ़िया है भाई। ये क्या क्लियरिटी तो बल्कि ये ज्यादा अच्छी दे रहा है, देखो बिल्डिंग कितनी क्लियर दिखाई दे रही है।
Look at the color difference between them. Again, the iPhone's actually a little bit muted. We've got the different skin
हाँ प्रो मैक्स की बढ़िया
tones of the ladies playing cards. They're quite different photos, actually. Which team are you leaning towards preferring? Apple, Samsung, or Pixel? And then moving up to a 3x portrait shot, which is, as
ओ भाई साहब भाई पिक्सल खतरनाक है, पिक्सल बहुत तगड़ा बना रखा है कैमरे में।
I say, as far as the Pixel could go, and we get to utilize the S24's first optical zoom before we go up to the 5x. And the Samsung and the Pixel definitely brighten the faces, which I think makes it a more pleasing image. Although in my testing, particularly with video, the Pixel can go a little overboard, trying to compensate for the brighter background and therefore brightening up your face. The color's completely drained out of me there. But going back to the girls in the park, you can see a significant difference in skin tones, particularly with darker complexions. In terms of what's true to life, I would say it's closer to the iPhone, although the image could do with being brightened up a little bit. I literally have like 500 photos in this timeline. The difficulty with making these comparison videos is that A, you can cherry pick, or someone can cherry pick the best
ये बात है, जो नेचुरल फीलिंग बढ़िया दे रही है, नेचुरल वाली वो प्रो मैक्स ही दे रहा है, नेचुरल फीलिंग दे रहा है।
results from each, because sometimes you just take a bad shot. What is really important to do is make sure you tap on the same subject to adjust that exposure. Also, the bigger question of what is a photo? You can make so many changes in the edit afterwards, and particularly with the revamped photography modes we have on iPhone, you can actually get away from that kind of traditional iPhone look and save a preset that you really, really like. So,
प्रो मैक्स की यार क्या फोटो आई है।
as I say, I'm just testing these on standard modes at the moment, and we'll dive into the photography
ओ भाई साहब इसमें तो ये तीनों ही तोड़ लग रहे हैं।
mode stuff in a second. But there is an element of what photos you choose. Are you having to zoom in and pixel peep to see the differences? And also just the
हाँ भाई कोई सा ही फोन ले लो, तीनों मस्त है।
subjectivity of it all. But have a look at this Banksy here in Bristol, and more specifically that graffiti below it. But what I'm finding both in bright and low light
फॉरेन में यार कितनी अच्छी अच्छी जगह है, इंडिया में जगह ही ना मिलती है ऐसी फोटो खींचने की।
is that the iPhone's white balance is very aggressive, and it can often turn colors away from their natural tones whiter, essentially. Although I must admit, with this Banksy example, I really don't like the Pixel as much. It's really brought up the shadows. We've lost a lot of contrast. And actually, the iPhone and Samsung with the 1X, with the regular main camera, are quite similar here. Before we start testing in low light, let's have a little look at the video. This is shot at 4K 60 on all cameras. Actually remarkably similar, I would say, although the Samsung on the left, look at my pink jumper there, it's very pink. And also look how dark that shadow is on my shoulder compared to the other two. And as I get right up close to the camera, perhaps a little bit too close for comfort, I'm definitely leaning towards preferring the iPhone in terms of video quality. In terms of stabilization, all the main and telephoto lenses across the three phones here have optical image stabilization or some form of it, and actually they're all remarkably smooth even walking down these steps. All three phones offer some variety of HDR video. For the purpose of this video, because I'm not mastering it in HDR, these are just shot in regular video mode at 4K 60. And in this very tricky lighting scenario, we've got the bright sun. The Pixel looks significantly noisier. Now, of course, I could have shot this in video boost mode, where it would have uploaded to the cloud afterwards, and I could have downloaded it, and that would improve the quality. But for this, I'm just really testing what you get straight out of the camera. And also, generally, you'll get better low light performance if you shoot at 4K 30 as opposed to 4K 60. I'm also going to give points to the iPhone for still offering the smoothest transition between lenses. The other two aren't far behind. It's much closer than it used to be, but for zooming in, particularly if you're going to use that camera control button on the iPhone, it is smoother on the iPhone. However, the video stabilization using the 5x telephoto does appear to be less smooth on the iPhone. Blur, cinematic, portrait. 4K 30, 4K 30, 1080p. Pixel is the lowest resolution of the three. I do quite like the cinematic mode on iPhone. For me, it's always been the best one. In terms of color, how unfake the blur looks behind you. What do you think? I did kind of hope that they would improve the cinematic plus 4K 60 on the iPhone 16, but then that's the same. It's slow-mo, obviously got 4K 120, but no change to cinematic mode. But there we are.
ओह पिक्सल भाई एक नंबर का है, पिक्सल भी मानना पड़ेगा।
Let's switch over to some low light shots, and
कितने का है पिक्सल? 50-60 हजार का।
this is another example of where the iPhone is aggressively compensating for
अगर प्रो मैक्स से कंपेयर कर रहे हैं भाई फिर तो 1.5 लाख का होना चाहिए।
colors in the scene. So in this first shot, I am actually looking at a blue screen on my phone, and the
यो है भाई एक नंबर का आ रही है 16 की।
iPhone's quite aggressive white balance is compensating and giving me a kind of whitey purple face as opposed to the more true to life blue that we get on the others. I think Samsung's done the best job here, not just on myself, although I will say that my face looks very over sharpened, but the general color, even in the back of the frame, the wood fence, the grass, the pathway, although
Zoom में तो यार S24 बढ़िया दे रहा है।
I think the iPhone does do a better job here, where I have a more white screen in front of me, and it has a really kind of moody cinematic feel to it, which I do quite like. This is officially Tech Chap After Hours. Come on in the studio late at night. This is where I'm filming right now. This is where I do all my work. And as I switch between the ultra-wide,
ओ भाई कितना पैसा कमा रहे हैं यूट्यूब से बंदे, क्या 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 तोड़ स्टूडियो बना रखा है, बाहर ही निकलने का मन ना करे।
the main and the telephoto lenses, quite significant differences between them. You may recognize Sylvie the cat if you're a regular on the channel. I think the pixel's coming across the most naturally. The iPhone just looks like someone's dragged the texture and sharpness slider in Lightroom all the way to 100. And it's a similar story here. I mean, look at the texture of the
इसमें कौन सा बढ़िया? 16 Pro Max।
brick wall on the iPhone. I mean, at first,
पर पिक्सल थोड़ा मूवी वाली लुक दे लग रहा है, मतलब कि जैसे मूवीज वगैरह में देखते हैं ना, जो फोटोज वगैरह वो उस तरीके की थोड़ी फीलिंग आ रही है। 16 Pro Max में क्लियरिटी ज्यादा है।
glance, perhaps it does look more detailed, but actually, it's just over sharpened.
भाई मुझे खरीदना, मैं तो 16 Pro Max ही खरीदूंगा, क्योंकि मैं तो भाई एप्पल तो एप्पल है।
And it looks kind of unnatural. I'm definitely leaning towards the Pixel and the Samsung. The Pixel in particular, especially with how it handles the Tech Chap neon sign at the top right. And again here, look how over-sharpened the iPhone photo is. I just don't understand what's happening. And this is the case whether you're shooting in JPEG or the HEIC file format. There isn't a significant difference. But particular credit to the Samsung's exposure here, how it's been able to handle the laptop and the screen and also the rest of the lighting in the room. Although back outside, you can see on the Samsung that the sky is actually
ओह यो किसमें कौन सी बढ़िया है? 16 Pro Max देख के दे रहा है ना मूवी वाली फीलिंग पिक्सल का थी।
quite noisy. For me, I'm definitely leaning towards the Pixel in terms of low-light photography.
पिक्सल भाई बाप है, मानना तो पड़ेगा। फोटो के मामले में पिक्सल भी थोड़ है भाई, जवाब है पिक्सल का।
But let's finish up this low-light comparison, going back to that group shot from the
इसमें तो 16 ही बढ़िया है।
start. And what a difference. I mean, firstly, the
या मैं ना माना अंग्रेज भैया तोरी।
colors on the Samsung, I don't know why it's green. The iPhone looks like it's taken the clarity slider to 100 and aged everyone 20 years. It's kind of
यो भाई कितना खुश है, इसकी खुशी का तो ठिकाना ही नहीं है।
horrible, actually. The Pixel is a little soft, but on balance, I think it's produced the best low-light group photo here. But how about some super low-light video? Well, I can tell you there is a cat here, but you only know that really from the iPhone and maybe the Pixel.
Okay,
This is
brother, thanks for watching। मैं तो भाई 16 ही लूंगा, आप बताओ कमेंट में आप कौन सी लोगे।